group was organized in 1978 as a competition corps. A little bit more about ourselves. We basically come from a couple different groups that disbanded. One was the Yalesville Seniors, and the other one was the Connecticut Yanks Fife and Drum Corps. Charlie Poole Jr. was the head of that drum line. I don't know if some of you know who Charlie Poole Jr. was, but that was his first gig. He was a young guy when he started in the group, and he wrote a lot of revolutionary writing that we try to follow that kind of same pattern today. A lot of complex snare drum parts, and what was really cool about what he did was the interplay between the snare drums and the bass drums. It really brought the bass drum out from the back. It brought it more towards the front as far as a different voice, and it kind of stood on its own. So we're going to play a little bit, and as we go through some of the tunes that we're going to play, I think they're going to progressively get a little bit harder. We'll tell you exactly what we're doing, and we'll kind of give you an idea of some of the things that we like to follow, some of the rules that we like to play with, and how we like to drum. So right next, we're going to play a little example of what Charlie Poole Jr. did. At the Connecticut Yanks, we're going to have a drum solo called Bristol Cream. We're going to have myself, my father, Don, and Colin up. We're going to play that for you right now.
You're making it hard on you.
So that's basically, the style that we like to play. We like to have the bass drum be a voice all on its own. The way that we write is to make sure that it's kind of following along with what the phrasing of the fifes are doing, and kind of follow along with some of the sometimes 3-4-part harmonies that we have written. So we kind of have it as a way to embellish the music that what we're doing. Something that's pretty unique about what we do that's a little bit different than from the drum and bugle corps is the style of which the rudimental bass drums play. The bass drums, well, we'll have my father come out and talk about it a little bit more because I really don't know anything about it. So.
He writes all the music, and all I do is just rewrite it when he's done with it. So, actually, I'm only half kidding because as a snare drummer, the way he plays, not that there's anything wrong with that, but he plays like flam, 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 so it's right, left, right. And the bass drum with all the swings, we would do a left-hand swing, so we would go right, right, left, 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 right. So we would change the sticking around to make it possible to do some of the visual things. The visuals and the bass drum were started probably around 1900 with Lexi Sinclair. He was a fancy beating bass drummer, and they had competitions in the CFNDA going way back when. And I learned to play from Bob Redigan, who learned from Earl Sturtz, and the bass drum swings are just a natural part of the way I learned to play. And so we try to fill all the space up with the swing from top to bottom so that it helps you remember the phrasing and helps you come in on the beat. Where one is, after the snares play their 7-stroke rolls and their 15-stroke rolls, you're going to hear Brennan talk about in the ancient fife and drum world, those rolls are not exactly metered. Sometimes they're a little bit long, and sometimes we have to wait 2 or 3 seconds for the snares to finish their roll, and we got to know that we're coming in. So it's not that bad. So we come in, and the swing helps us to keep the pace between the beginning and the end of that roll. The other thing that's kind of different about it is that you would think that with a big swing, we'd have a big accent in the end, which is sort of crank it up for that big hit. To me, one of the prettiest parts of being a bass drummer is that when you're playing soft, extremely soft, with the big swings, you're able to come down and still have the muscle control to bring the swing up as big and graceful as you can make it, and then come in and hit the drum in a pianissimo or a very, very soft soft beat. So that's kind of the most exciting part about being a drummer. The other thing I like about it is when we go under tunnels and railroad bridges and stuff, when you're getting up to it, you just don't, you play as soft as you can till you get right there. And then when you're under that bridge, you just let loose.
So the next thing that we're going to play is one of our parade tunes. It's called Barnyard Trot. You're going to see a little bit of an example of what the bass drummers do as far as their sticking. Some of the visual things coming off of a rudiment. And this song was written by Paul Cormier. He was my teacher when I was 9, 10 years old. He's an excellent snare drummer. He's probably one of the probably the best snare drummer that nobody really knows about. He was a championship drummer from Connecticut. He's still around today, and he's one of the prettiest drummers I've ever seen and probably will ever see in my life. And he taught me the Sturts way of how to play rudiments, and he was at the Patriots here for a very long time. So we like to take some of his music that he played and that he wrote, and we still play it in the same manner that he would have played it and taught it. So here's Barnyard Trot. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is how we prepare as a drum line and practice and try to get all these notes that we're playing up to speed and making sure that we maintain our level of quality all the way throughout the season. We're a volunteer organization. We only rehearse once a week, if that. So nobody's forced here to be here. We do this for the love of drumming, but we work extremely hard when we have those Friday night rehearsals. So just to give you a little bit of a background, if we have the drum line, my father you met, he was in the Connecticut Yankees drum line. He's been in the Corps, and he's a director of the drum line right now. I don't know, how long have you been in the Corps?
Since 1980.
1980. Then we got Ben Strisky. He was a member of the Connecticut Hurricanes drum line in the 1960s and 70s. So this is sort of a new thing for him, playing with the style, lifting up a little bit more. When he played in the Connecticut Yankees, was very wrist-oriented. We kind of play a little bit more from the arm. Obviously, it's wrist first, the beat leads, but everything kind of moves a little bit more freer with what we do. We have a lot of lifts. So he's had a little bit of a tough time trying to get that, but he's done a great job making that transition. It's been a tough road, I think. He's worked his butt off to get here. So
I got 40 years on all you guys.
Yeah, no.
I got sticks and drum slings older than all of you.
Next guy in the snare line is Dave Sadie. He's part of the Stony Creek Fife and Drum Corps, who has a very, very great tradition down in Brantford, Connecticut. So he plays with us whenever he can. He's a very good drummer himself. Matt Thompson, someone that I taught back when we were both young. And Colonel John, we're still kind of young, I guess. But he went through the Yukon drum line, and he actually ended up teaching at the Yukon drum line. So very happy to have him here. Tim Goss, back there. somebody I've known for a really long time. He's a little bit more serious now because he just is in the Army. He's just new to the old guard fife and drum corps. We know him as a pretty big goofball. So, to see him yeah, well, I won't tell too many stories about him. My brother Colin back here, who's a great bass drummer. I teach with him just about every group that I teach, high school, drum and bugle corps. We always end up working together. And we try to keep our fighting to a minimum, but fantastic bass drummer. I've been playing with him since I was 6, 7 years old. So he's here with us. And then there's Scott Bisquette. Scott is an interesting story because he had never played drums before. He kind of married into this. His wife joined the fife line right after they married, or right before they got married, and he came into rehearsal one day and decided he was going to play bass drum, and he's done a fantastic job learning this. I don't know how he's done it, but he's been a great asset to the drum line. And this is Peter, my brother. Whoops. So everybody knows Peter. Peter is the Mason that everybody knows. So everybody comes to me or Colin. So you're Peter's dad, or you're Peter's brother. So everybody knows Peter. He's going to give you an example of some Swiss drumming a little bit later when we get a little bit further in the program. Peter is very, very good at Swiss drumming. He has studied Basel-style drumming, and this past summer he actually went over there to compete with other Basel drummers, and he did a very, very good job on his first time. So he's going to give you a little example of some of that style a little bit later on in the program. So again, like I said before, it's very hard to have everybody come in once a week and maintain all the music that we're playing. So we have a series of exercises. We're not going to play all of them for you. But the first one that we play is sort of like our 8 on the hand, but I've taught so many drum lines over the years that I'm just so sick of 8 on the hand, so we don't play anything remotely close to that. So just the thing to get our hands moving. It's just a 6-tupled bass exercise. It doesn't really follow any kind of meter. It goes over the bar line. And we have that so we can get a flow with what we're playing and not really worry about playing in time, but worry more about just lifting our hands up together and getting good quality notes. So we're going to play 2 reps of that right now. Bullfrogs in Ethiopia. First time loud, second time crescendo. We have here is a roll development exercise. So in fife and drum, and some of you guys know this as well, we play a lot of odd meter rolls and a lot of odd timing rolls. So instead of 5 rolls, we play 7 rolls. Instead of 9 rolls, we play 11-stroke rolls. Instead of 50-stroke rolls, or instead of 13-stroke rolls, we play 50-stroke rolls. So what we have here is just kind of a check. We check each roll. So for instance, the way that we interpret a 7-stroke roll would be an 8th note followed by 3 16-note triplets. So we have basically the roll exercise that follows that all the way along, all the way through, and we're going to play that for you a couple times. Ready? Roll development twice. So if you notice what we just did with the role development exercise, what we have is what we call a lift, or air between the sticks. And we use that more of a visual cue. So instead of playing a role and attacking it down here, we give ourselves a little bit of a preparatory lift in between to make sure that we know that we need to play the 7-roll together and to kind of cue in on that. So we do a lot of things visually. We try to play from the inside out as far as our listening responsibilities. But we make sure that we're visually watching and checking what's going on with the drum line. One other thing about that. No, that's about it, actually. So we'll talk about that a little bit later in the program, but a lot of it is that lift, and we don't really care if it kind of hangs over the time. It's good for us to have some space with the roll and then kind of push the rest of the stuff and kind of make up for time at the end. We'll talk a little bit about the push and pull of what we do. The last exercise we're going to play is our exercise number 4. It's a stone sequence. The reason why we call it stone sequence is it has some stick control kind of patterns in it from George Stone and some axes and rebounds from George Stone as well. And it has a bunch of other stuff in it. So it's kind of our get ready for the rest of the music exercise. It's kind of got a little groove to it. So here's the stone sequence. Twice. Twice. So we kind of have the attitude, if we can play the exercise, we can probably begin to play the rest of our music because it's got some meat into it. One of the things, again, that we introduced there is the interplay between the bass drum and the snare drum, sometimes shifting the accents over in the bass drum on a 16-note pattern. So we'll have accent on one, and they'll have an accent on the E or the and to kind of give that pop and have it pop out the way that we like to have it. So we like to have that independence between the two voices. The next thing we're going to play is Stillman's Reel when we go down to Washington. So, like we said earlier, that there are some rules that we like to break in fife and drum corps. It doesn't necessarily have to be in straight time, as long as we have an idea of what the tempo is. When we have a 7-roll in the beginning, obviously you hear 1, 2, 3, 4, and then before we even play a 7-roll, we shouldn't even count because we don't even listen to that counting. It's just a way for us to watch the counting because there's no chance we're going to play that 7-roll in time. But it's really a way for us to, get our hands going and to make sure we count off for the lift. And at that point, we play the 7-roll. So if we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, it's always late. So no matter what we do. In fact, when we march, it's more like zhum, and then we're going. So every time we have a 7-roll, there's like a weird hitch on our step. So we embrace that. So we like that. We can take a breath at the end of a phrase and be able to have that nice open breath at the end before we start the next 4 or 5 or 8 bars. Another thing that we do too is flammecues. The tendency is always to have the accent. Flammecue is the pattern, the rhythm is. But for whatever reason, we like to shift that accent a little bit closer to that first note, and it kind of gives it that nice little swing to what we do. So I'm going to try to play Stillman's Reel straight for you. As best I can. I don't know if I can. Okay, so we're going to play it now as an entire drum corps, but you're going to hear a significantly different part. We're going to take it and we're going to swing it and have it move a little bit more. right, so the next tune that we're going to play is called Johnny Can't Cope. The first part is pretty cool. It's actually written by Paul Cormier again, and it has a lot of different dynamic things and phrasing things that we do. But I think the coolest part of this whole piece is the drum solo. It's only 8 bars, 16 measures, I think, or 8 bars? I don't know. I think it's 8 bars. Excuse me. The thing that's pretty cool about it is, again, it shows that interplay between the snare and the bass drum at its easiest, but it sounds pretty complicated. The second half of this drum break, the bass drummers are on 1 with a 16 note pattern, 1E and a 2E and a 1E and a 2E, while the snare drummers are at 1 16 note off. So it kind of gives this whole chick-up-a-good, boom. So I want to actually have Matt Thompson and Colin come up and play that for you. It's a pretty easy part, but I like what the voice is going on and the bass drum popping out and the snare drum popping out. It's actually my favorite thing that we play. As simple as it may sound, it kind of has a cool groove to it. So right now, as a core, we're going to play the entire medley, Johnny Can't Cope. The last tune, I think you'll recognize, is Crazy Army, written by Ken Lemley and made famous by Steve Gadd, the drum set player. So we'll have you guys listen to that right now. All right, so the next piece we're going to play is Seaweed. I'm going to have Tishka, our fife instructor, come out and introduce the fife line and talk a little bit about the phrasing that we do and the different parts or whatever she has to tell us.
Well, basically, we're here at a drum convention, so we're the accompaniment to this awesome ensemble. So we are obviously in the background, but I hope you can hear us and that we're playing loud and proud. So just like Black River last night played loud and proud, so we really try to do that with the tradition of fifing. One of the things that we do try to do together is really focus on the fact that this is an ensemble between the fifers and the drummers. So a lot of the things that we're working on is doing different types of phrasing. Brendan writes music to bring out the different parts so that you'll have like fifes and basses or fifes and snares or snares and basses. There's a lot of interplay, and that goes on a lot also with the fife line. So we do focus on doing that and trying to hear the different parts, and you'll hear that in the next piece that we're doing. The other thing is we also try to do a tradition of exercising, doing that when we have rehearsals. So we do break up the rehearsals where the drums do what they need to do and we do what we need to do. But I know you don't really care what we do because we're the pipers and we're in the background. So The focus that we do is really on the ensemble playing and doing the phrasing, and I hope that you can hear that we are really playing with them, and you can hear where we're doing the softs and the louds and the crescendos and all that, and we really work towards precision.
You're cutting through.
It's cutting through? Yes! That's the goal. So the people the lovely fifers you have here, my name is Tishka Musko. I've been teaching the corps for a little bit more than 5 years. Been playing in fife and drum for quite a long time. I'm also going to do a little bit of the Swiss stuff with Peter. Whenever that happens, we're going to do that. This is Laura Degree. One of the pieces that we're playing is Planksty Laura May, and this is written about Laura. There's a big tradition of family in this corps, as you notice, with all the Masons that seem to kind of be ubiquitous over there. So, we also have a tradition of the fifers are also teaching other corps. So Laura is also teaching the Deep River Juniors. We have Carol Loyal, who is our special person. She's a guest with us today, and she's from the Old Guard, but hopefully will be able to play with us, and she graced us with her presence today and helped us be loud and proud. She also teaches the fifes and drums of Fredericksburg, so we're really trying to get the excellent fifers out there to really push the tradition. And Rob Randall, he's also a championship fifer. He's been playing with this corps for a really long time, grew up with Colonel John, and I don't know how old you were when you started playing, really little I'm sure, 8 years old, and he's also still involved with Colonel John and teaches Colonel John. So that's that, and we will continue with
So speaking of the fifers, the next piece we're going to do is going to highlight the fifers. They have a fife solo in the middle of this, so that's why we had her come out and talk. But it's called Seaweed. to try to get through this as quickly as we possibly can. The next person I'd like to quickly introduce is Joe Campbell, the last person of our entourage. We used him to bring our trailer down, but we said, hey, why don't you be our drum major? No, but in all seriousness, he's our drum major. He's going to talk a little bit about the competition that we're going to play, playing C. Laura May, so I'll leave it to him.
Great. I'll just tell you quickly a little bit about my role in the Corps. Mostly for parades, I'm in charge from the color guard to the bass drum and anything that happens in the middle, including communicating with the units in front of us or behind us, or actually the Corps kind of laughs at me because I have an imaginary boundary to which you cannot come into. So if you're a balloon vendor and you come into my boundary, we'll take you out.
Quick side thing on that. We like to bring the balloon vendors as quickly to the bass drum as possible, so we can give free toys away to the little children.
That's right.
So it's a pretty cool thing.
But really my role with the Corps is, other than really managing sort of the appearance of the Corps, is I start and stop the pieces. And now I'm going to segue into the competitive side, where my role in the competitive side is I literally set the tempo to what we're going to play for the piece. So if the tempo's off, at the end of the day, it's my fault. But to segue over to really the competition side, competitions have sort of diminished over the years. However, we still are a highly competitive Corps. We belong to Hudson Valley, Massachusetts, and Connecticut associations still currently. And how that works is if you win first place in one of those conventions, then you move on to what's called the Northeastern. And we have successfully won the past 7 Northeastern championships. We skipped a year, but in the past 14 years we have won the high overall playing mark of the day at the Northeastern. So we're very proud of that. So the next piece that we're going to play is our 2/4 competitive piece.
So quickly, we got two more things we're gonna do for you. The next one is our drum solo, When Broken Still Spoke. I'll not even gonna go into all the different things that we're playing with it. But I do want to show one particular point. There's a part in the middle of it, we have a 2-drum section, and we kind of base it off of a traditional Basel piccolo and drum piece called Fife or Retreat. So I'd like to have Tishka come out and Peter play that for me quickly. Ready?
I'm dry as hell. So.
So here's the drum solo, When Broken Still Spoke. let's finish up. We're going to play our last tune. It's our theme song, and the name of it is Edinburgh Castle. It's what everybody kind of knows us by. The drum part was written by Dr. James Clark.